will all provide feedback in a very safe environment. So this isn't just somebody called it this isn't just a Zoom room, it's a Zoom womb. So what happens here stays here.
I love communication strategy, and that's what we're talking about today, is that how do you formulate a message and push that through or drive that message home, pulling people into the conversation, which is going to be a big part of what we're looking to hear from you today, is that it's not just a data dump. How do you actually create a conversation? We want to get out of the idea of doing presentation skills and really think about dialogue skills. Right? So how are you engaging us in the content, not just dumping it into our laps? I'll be able to share some of those skills with you, and our job today is just to take you from, great to even better, all right? Nobody's getting voted off the ship today. Nobody's getting voted off the island, right? So there's no testing going on. Our job here today is just to kind of see where you're at in your skills and to start looking at what's going to work a little bit better for you to better connect with people.
When we get sent a slide deck, it takes time for it to really to take ownership, and that this is our content, and that over time you develop analogies and metaphors to help them visualize it more. I do the same content a lot, I do a lot of different programs, but we'll do it multiple times. Each time I'm trying to do it just a little better each time. And years ago, I saw Penn and Teller present at a conference, and that's what they talked about. Someone said, how do you keep it fresh? Some of your acts you've been doing since the 1980s, or because each time we're trying to get the timing, the pause, the wink, the reveal, just that much better. And I think we can do that with this instead of having message fatigue, oh, here we go, the same graphics, same data points. It's how do I reach them and each time make it better?
But you did have a bit of a rushed sound. That's when you get your fillers, is when you're pushing it. In other words, I'm really trying to go through this faster than I actually know it. And then that's when you start getting all these ums and ahs and so's, because of course it's not processing quite as fast as I'm speaking it. Now, the reason why you don't want to sound rushed is because, a couple of things. It can sometimes sound like you're not confident, because if you're confident, you own the time, like I said in the webinar. Another thing is you don't pause then, because you're plowing too fast, to use that power of pausing. And then also, if you want people to come into your presentation, if you're really rolling like that, they'll tend not to ask questions or make comments or get involved, because they kind of feel that, whoa, better stay out of the way, she's moving.
Oh, thank you so much for taking time to meet with me today. It's a horrible way to start. And it's also bad positioning, right? You bring value to the table. So your opening line is important, isn't it? Even as you get started, something more in the lines of it's so great to see you again, or I'm really delighted to have this opportunity to chat with you because what? And then say something powerful that adds some value, that captures their attention, right? Just way better than, thank you so much for this time with you today. All right. It's that's 3 seconds out of their life that they can't get back with you. And they're going to decide from the second you start talking if you're just another one of those sales reps that's just going to start your spiel.
I totally agree with the comment that you got about the dosing, because I think 9 times out of 10, a doctor, if they say, so is the recommended dose this, they want the answer right now. Tell me the recommended dose, and then go either, I agree with that, either say, okay, can I go to that in a moment, or do you want me to go right now? You got to know this stuff so well that you could go wherever they want to go in that conversation. And if you can prove that to them, then you will win them over.
I also wrote down, when you asked about what does this mean for your patients. Now, I wrote that down because I liked the question, okay? I want you to play around with letting those questions breathe more. So what does this mean for your patients? And then you jumped in. So you didn't give me time to think about what it meant for my patients. It's a great question. It's a great position to put the people you're talking to in, to put those DOs and put them in that position where they have to think about it, but make sure you're letting it breathe. What does that mean for your patients? And then go. And that gets back to the pacing too. I said, I'm a quick talker. I feel it. I get it. I know it. Pauses is going to be so important in your delivery. if you tried to change the entire tone of your voice and talk very slowly, you would lose that natural delivery dynamic that you have. So instead, if you can work on pausing, and even if it's making a mental note to yourself that after every slide is done, you say, what questions do you have at this point? And then move on. But give it that beat to let your audience catch up with all the great stuff you just said.
The goal behind this is to connect, is to be more interested than interesting, and to make them feel psychological safety. And to do that, we have to not only sound that way, like we're interested and engaged, we have to look that way. And sometimes you're a bit in your head and your face gets pensive, and I want you to think about connecting with them and making them feel comfortable and using those warm facial expressions.
Different from saying something about it and asking something about it, right? So just the act of turning that into a question, it's like, all right, before I can't even start until I hear, what's your favorite team? Who has a horse in this game today? You know, anybody a UK fan? You know, any KU fans? Because I'd be like, woo, rock chalk. You know, and suddenly now I feel like I know you because you just mentioned my team. It's just how it works that way. So just by turning it into a question and taking just another 5 seconds on that could have engaged us right there in a whole different way. All right, as opposed to you talking at us about it and being kind of entertaining with it. You've brought us into it. And that's the distinction that we're trying to get to. So it's going to be really important if you've got multiple people in the room to say, hey, you know, Dr. Lindsay, I'm curious what kind of patients you're, you know, do you have any Carols in your, coming into your practice right now? And then to immediately say, and what about you, Dr. Christie? What are you seeing? And make sure that you're parlaying off. Or maybe Dr. Lindsay says something, makes a comment about something, and you say, Dr. Christie, what can you add to that? Is that the same thing that you're seeing? What are you seeing that's different, right? And so if you probe a little further and get two people speaking to each other, then it feels more like a conversation. So, and those things only take like 3 more seconds to do that. Right? But the payoff of that can be so powerful because now it doesn't feel like I felt like I got great value from you and you're polished. I just don't want it to be so polished that you miss that point of really connecting with us as human beings.
You have a naturally slower delivery style, but it's not boring. There's a huge difference between slower and boring. You're not boring. I loved that second close. You asked for questions, but you left us on your terms. Okay, here's one more thing I want to tell you. I'm ending on this good note. Bam, goodbye. I loved that. Thank you for trying that. And I could tell that you added some transitions too. There was one between busy and productive. When you were going between those, it was a clear transition to me, and that helped guide me along today. I didn't notice as many of those yesterday. I noticed those today. And then I have, from a visual standpoint, on your slides, there was one that it was animated, the difference between busy and productive. I appreciated that you animated that, because had both of those been up there, I would have been reading it all because I just want to get to the productive, right? I want to see that. So the fact that you animated them really kept me listening to you and hearing what you were saying. So I loved that. I loved the examples you talked about. I think you've put in at least one, possibly 2 examples in there, and I loved those about reading 5 books at once. That helped. And I liked that it was interactive. Again, you were checking, you were pausing, and feeling like we were having a conversation, not being lectured.
Though I wrote, strong welcome to us. You had your source of credibility in your opening, and I thought you did a nice job saying, like, we heard you. We heard what your concerns were, and we've tailored this. That's what an audience wants to hear. They don't want to hear that, like, here's my boilerplate slide deck I'm about to present to you, right? And you did a nice job. I think the virtual background looks good. You framed your image well, like the whole thing where you're, we can see you. You're not like all forehead, or not like looked up the chin, that some folks have. The lighting is good. Volume and rate were excellent. You have really nice vocal energy.
And you recognized that need for open-ended questions, not the how does this sound or does this make sense, but use those questions as a transition. So, you're done with the slide, give that pause. What questions do you have about dosing? Give it a break. Okay. Sometimes people don't ask those open-ended questions because they're worried about hearing crickets. And then, okay, what do I do if nobody asks the question? Now I'm just sitting here. Have a question in your back pocket or use it as your transition. So what questions do you have about dosing? One question I often get is about efficacy. Let's look at that. So it's your question in your back pocket that transitions you into your next point.
You did a really nice job with those verbal cues early on you said something about the left-hand side of the screen. And then if you look onto the right, it's like, oh, nice job on that. You pick that up right away. But on a busy screen, you can just say, hey, now I know this is a really busy screen. This describes our mechanism of action. Here's basically what you need to know about that. And what it does is it releases your audience from feeling like they have to find the key points. You've assured them that you're going to tell them the key points. And now their attention is back on you. So it's a really important strategy to learn on a busy slide. Just let them know, lots going on here, but here's what you need to know.